Now, good news coming out of Kenya is that the country's Capital Markets Authority has approved a new investment fund from Wall Street Africa, or WSA, which is a Nairobi-based financial media and fintech startup. It will allow investors to buy into a group of listed banks in a single investment. Those in the know say that the WSA Banking Exchange-Traded Fund, or ETF, will hold shares in banks that are listed on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. According to CMA, it will be Kenya's first locally domiciled exchange-traded fund and is expected to list in the fourth quarter. To tell us more on this, as well as its significance, we're joined this evening by Eric Asuma, founder and chairman of the Wall Street Africa Group. A very good evening to you, sir. Welcome to Africa in Business.
Thank you. Appreciate and glad to be here.
So perhaps let's start with the significance of this particular approval and this fund. Why is it so important?
Good. Thank you so much. So one, it's not just the story about one ETF. It's so significant that it's about expanding and widening our capital markets and innovating in our capital markets. I'll give you a bit of context around Kenya's capital markets and in particular ETFs. When you look at South Africa, from the Johannesburg Stock Exchange perspective, you have a number of ETFs listed. The likes of Satrix have ETFs listed. It's a big thing. In Kenya, we've never had a locally domiciled ETF. But that I'll give an example. We have two listed ETFs, but the two ETFs are a bit domiciled, in South Africa. So Satrix has listed an ETF here called Satrix MSCI. Absa Group has also listed an ETF here that tracks gold. The significance of this, number one, is that the banking sector in Kenya is probably ranked one of the world's best performing in terms of return on investment. That's according, to the Bankers magazine. At the same time, the banking industry is the stocks listed here on the banking side are some of the most liquid, and they command a big chunk of the entire market more than any other sector. If a Kenyan, as an institutional, a foreign investor, local investor wants to invest, they'll have to go to each of these individual banks. What we are doing is simple. We are creating one basket that tracks the entire industry. That's how important this is. You make it easier for any person to invest in one of the best performing banking industries in the world within the simplest and most efficient and transparent way. And it's also a story about how do we expand our ETF market in the region. So that's why we are excited about this approval, from the regulators, and you expect more good news in the coming days.
So tell us a bit about the Nairobi Securities Exchange and the types of companies and stocks that are listed there, not only from a Kenyan local perspective, but continental and even international as well.
Good. Yeah, so to give you a bit of context around Nairobi Securities Exchange, it's probably one of the top 5 markets across Africa. Developed, but not as developed as, Johannesburg. However, it's growing extremely fast. As of July, end of July, Nairobi Securities Exchange was ranked the 4th best performing in the world. The only market that was ahead of it was Nigeria. But we were ahead of some of the developed markets. Nairobi is now competing with the likes of, the Hong Kongs, Vietnam, in terms of just performance, South Korea. So the beauty is that a lot is opening up. The regulators have been very open, licensing new players, being very more transparent to some of these opportunities, and, making it easier, for local retailers, foreign investors to access the market. One of the most significant developments that have happened in the last few weeks is the ability to allow Kenyans to buy stocks using mobile money embedded onto M-Pesa platform. That has been a huge drive, especially for the retail side. And that was one of the things that made us make the decision to launch this banking sector ETF. The beauty is that with the support of the regulators and how open they are, that has ended up opening a lot of opportunities, for financial institutions, fintechs, startups like us to innovate around the stock market. So that's the opportunity that we see. And, part of their strategy is to expand the retail market. But, you can't expand the retail market without bringing in new products. So now we step up and work with the stock exchange to now build these new innovative products. A bit of my background has been in the financial markets. I previously built a company in Nairobi called HISA that enabled Kenyans to access fractional US stocks from Kenya and connecting to the US, the NASDAQ and the NYC. So from that experience, I've been able to see, okay, what lacks in this market that we need to build. And so my entire work is building and innovating around this space, and that's what I enjoy.
You spoke a little bit, you touched on the type of companies and entities that you are targeting. Could you just expand on that for us and why those particular companies?
So to give you a bit of maybe which companies are listed here. So mostly in Nairobi, we have a big telco, Safaricom, owned by Vodacom Group in South Africa, means significant majority. Then we have banks. Banks are, the second, they take a big chunk of that. So telco is a big one, telcos. Then banks, of course. So Absa Bank here is listed, of course, as a relationship with the group in South Africa. Standard Bank, Nedbank has recently gone to the market. So the banking sector is the most probably, the financial services with a specific, which is banking, is the most common and traded sector here. Given how thriving it is, how performing it is. So that's the reason we started with that. That's the reason we started with that banking sector. And why do we want? But in terms of just performance, in terms of trades as well, to give a bit of context, Nairobi also has a huge, the exchange here has a lot of international capital flow from Europe, from the US, and of course parts of Africa, with specifically South Africa. So, we are looking to, those are some of the investors that, we are looking to build easier, products that are a bit transparent and easier for them to get into the market.
You did highlight earlier on in our conversation the performance of the Nairobi Securities Exchange, but I wonder what are the challenges that continue to plague Kenya's capital markets? Could you take us through some of those hurdles that you are yet to overcome?
Okay, good. Thanks for that. That's a good question. So, as just like most frontier and emerging markets, there's a number of issues that are common across the continent. The most common one is, macro. Investors really want to understand, how is your country looking like? How is your economic situation? The beauty, things are a bit stable here. Currency is a bit more stable now. Macro is improving, inflation is improving. So that makes it easier for, local and international investors to get to the market. The other common challenge, of course, was around foreign currency and fluctuations. The beauty, that's a thing of the past. It's already been resolved. And to give you also a bit of context, it's lack of more innovative products, that expand the market. So, for example, it's quite surprising that Nairobi is, it's being positioned as the gateway to Africa's capital markets. But why is it not as liquid? And that's how we thought, look, why don't we be the guys who build that product or expands this market? Investors are looking for more innovative products to access the markets and support the economy. So lack of products is a major one, lack of innovative products. So the beauty is that regulators have been a bit more open around issuing, licenses and approvals to more innovative things like the banking ETF. The other challenge that I see, from a personal standpoint, is that integration to the global capital markets. The way I see Nairobi should be the Hong Kong of Africa. How do you connect Africa to New York, to Dubai, to London through capital markets? We are not deeply integrated, and that's part of the challenges that we are solving at Wall Street Africa through building data and intelligence products for African markets. And as part of that, we do that through educating global investors, selling products and media and data products to global investors like hedge funds. And as part of that, one of our major initiatives we do is an event in New York called Bullish Africa. We do it on the sidelines of the UNGA Anga 81. We are doing it on 22nd September this year in New York. And what we've done is we've invited most of the most high profile Wall Street firms, hedge funds, financial institutions, broker dealers. Then we are connecting them to each and every of these CEOs of Africa's largest listed companies, right? So that's part of educating the global community about Africa's capital markets.
And I
Really
must say,
performing well.
I must say, Mr. Asuma, we're going to leave it at that for today. But look, you threw it out there. This Bullish Africa sounds like an absolutely amazing, a workshop or a gathering that's going to be taking place on the 22nd of September. Let's be in touch as well around that, as well as who's going to be participating. But for today, congratulations on the new investment fund coming out of your stable, Wall Street Africa. And we certainly look forward to more of what you're going to be doing as far as, the listings and the Nairobi Securities Exchange going forward. We thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate for the opportunity and speak soon.
Thank you. That's Mr. Eric Asuma, founder and chairman of the Wall Street Africa Group. Great advancements there coming out of Kenya.